And now we have Captain Nikunj Parashar, and who is half in the Navy. We could actually, if there was an Agniveer scheme in the officers' cadre, we would have taken him into the Navy. But he is the CEO of Mr. Sagar Defense Engineering and Oceans BV Rotterdam, Netherlands. A merchant mariner. I am from, also done his graduation in IIM Ahmedabad. He's been awarded National Award in Jan 22 in robotics sector by DPIIT by the Government of India, in September 2022 by National Security Guard under MHA for developing countermeasures for IEDs. He holds number of patents developing electronic and wireless charging systems for unmanned systems. He's got impressive educational qualifications, represented India at Los Angeles for Clean Tech program, at The Hague as leading entrepreneurs from India for robotics, at Slush Conference Helsinki in robotics, at Vivatech 2022 Paris, India. He was representing the country for the year of robotics, where our country was selected for the country for the year of robotics, and he's got various technical papers. The rest you have to read the brochure, because I can't read the whole thing. There's too many things to read. So he'll speak to us on autonomous maritime systems, progress, methods, and challenges. Over to you, Nikunj.
Thank you, sir. I'm very nervous, especially after sitting in that panel, because I've been guided by sir, and I've worked with everybody sitting there, from Ankur sir, Uttaya sir, and Gariwal sir. Gulaya sir very directly with TDAC and IO. And I come from Merchant Marine. So I'm a physics, chemistry, maths in my high school failure, and that's how I went out to sea. That's the reality, sir. So rest everything what I did was compulsion to really prove my parents. Now, point is what Ankur sir really covered very well in the autonomous systems, and it has been very heavyweight lifting which has been happening here. And as a merchant mariner, I could say is, let me talk about legislation, let me talk about the regulation. Because every time, I've gone out at sea at sailing, and I see INS Deepak calling up a vessel which is in the Persian Gulf from Cochin, and I say, what the hell they are doing? And the merchant ship is almost few hundred nautical miles away. He would not be able to hear. And they say that the merchant navy guys go to sleep. And the same way as a merchant naval officer, when we see a naval ship, we say, just turn around. I'm not sure on their navigation skills. They can fight war. So I could see both the sides. And it's really beautiful when I saw both the sides. And that's what a ship is to me. When I look at the Navy, when I look at the merchant side, for me, a ship is absolutely a waterborne craft. And that's all I understand across. And this beauty really helped me to really understand more deeply what is an autonomy. And now this is something which we have not put across. It's in April 22 put up by IMO, where they set up a joint committee under the MSC, LEG, and FAL Convention. And they spoke about these four things. Now when we talk about fully autonomous class 4 level of autonomy or class 3 level of autonomy, as a merchant naval officer, I look at this is the way it should go on. And where do we stand today? This is an era where, as India, we could bring in standards, we could bring in policies which were really built up by the Europeans. If you look at the Seafaring Committee, whether it's we have one of the largest navy, we have the highest officers out there, out at sea in the merchant marine, including the crew. We are the second now close to the Filipinos. So why don't we are there in the policy level, especially when we are looking at autonomy? And this is something I have been trying last 10 years. It's been a decade where I have been speaking at the national conferences, at the international conferences, and trying to bring about a standard. We are talking to DG Shipping to set up a committee, especially to study on the autonomy. And this is the opportunity where I see in. When we look at a business case, the Navy is fantastic. I mean, you look at the RFIs which are there, the RFPs which are coming in, the way NIO and TDAC has been pushing across, the business is among us. Possibly 7 years down the line, it was part of the vision, sir, but it was not there actually coming in for a startup, for an MSME to really take up this product in. So where do we stand today there in that aspect? The most important part, and as navigators, as sailors, and I combine everybody together as sailors once we go out at sea, for us it is very important to get on these standards on board. What are the standards of safe manning? What are the standards of safe operation when we are looking at a maritime autonomous surface ship? It can be a small craft. Anything above 7 meters, anything above 12 meters. What are the standards are we looking at? Is India looking at that? I am not seeing it there. And let me be very honest. Let me be very practical about it. And this is one of the challenge we are facing at regular mode. If we do not look at that framework, then how are we going to define? So we need to come up with a risk-based management framework. What this framework is going to help us? The most important part, and that's why I say is maritime is big boys game. For example, if I ask everyone to write your name on a pen and paper, it's very easy. But imagine writing that something 1 meter below the water. It becomes very complex. So a very simple problem becomes very complex in a maritime environment and very expensive to solve. So something we have to look at the design environment. I'm a big follower of design thinking, and this is where we need to look at. Which, are we doing that? Especially with respect to autonomy is something we need to think across. Not only that, how do we carry out the testing and validation? So matter of fact, when we were doing our project with that TDAC and NIO, we took up a dam, got it certified by NDRF, took the clearance from the local government in Pune. I proudly say it's been developed out of Pune here. The dam was allocated for us for our testing trial basins. Now when you're doing it, you're looking at, as the sea condition, looking 4 different, that is the synthetic, the environment, the assurance and the system. So when you put it across in a risk management matrix, there could be a scenario where your data decode could become very brittle. There can be a scenario where huge amount of data coming into a smaller vessel could actually complicate the whole system in. So how do we go about that? And this is a thinking which we need to do on every on basis. Now how this would develop? So when we look at maritime, especially the commercial side, we say if you tell a ship owner to take out a lifeboat, he'll just remove the lifeboat as long as there is no regulation. Maritime is a very reactive industry. If you take the airlines, they are very proactive. But maritime is a very reactive industry. So the first thing for us is we really looking at developing what kind of operations we are going to have. How we are going to train, what is the certification for it. And when we did the spotters with the Navy, the biggest challenge for us was, and as a small startup, we didn't know how to make a manual. So the team in the IHQ made us sit with the BrahMos manual across and said, read it and try to make a manual. Great, we did one. When the drones went onto the ships, we actually dropped around 9 of them. Out of 9, 10 was operator's fault. But it was not part of the manual, so it's our fault. We didn't know how to go about it. Imagine putting an autonomous surface vessel out there at sea. That's a question we need to ask, and there is no legal framework. It's just the IMO. This is the right robot moments for our maritime fraternity. And when I say at IMF here, it's actually our moment to set up a council on this. And how do we go about it? And when we start doing a design thinking on it, we'll actually come to a suitable testing standards. Nobody has it globally. We are talking to Lloyds. I've been speaking to IRS on a greater length on this scenario. So we all in ourselves, Vessi would say, and proudly, and I'm very proud of it, that if we are doing autonomy level 4, I would say autonomy level 4. How do we compare it across as a merchant marine? Because the autonomy level changes moment, either it's a full autonomous vessel, or it is an autonomous vessel with crew on board. But the interaction could be between an autonomous vessel and a vessel which is completely manned. How do you go about it? These are certain legislations which we need to really look at. And this is where we really have to grow, because if our product has to get from local to global, this has to be within that envelope. So this legislation, and we have to look at the Limited Liability Convention, we have to look at the MARPOLs, we have to look at the SOLAS for matter of fact, how this autonomy is going to act in. And this has been a challenge for us as a master mariner, taking a 360-meter vessel, 60-meter wide, 28-meter draft, you're crossing Malacca Straits. The amount of stress we have, we do understand that. And right now, when we are building these autonomous vessels, are we talking about it? This is a question we need to ask. This is a question I have tried to raise at the highest level in the ministry too. And this is my urge, and this is one thing where we should form this committee, especially for the autonomous end. So the question again is, how safe is enough? And when we say the safety, what is the safe speed? What are the lookouts when you look at the call rigs, as navigators, when you're looking at? What kind of machineries are we looking at? And these are certain questions I've been really pointing it out. So we need to understand the clear ecosystem. Such test systems are available in Europe. We did a tank testing in Netherlands. We had a basin where we could test our autonomous vessels. Right now, if we see any basin here in India, we don't find it. The only place which is right now allotted by the government, we have it in Pune. And that is only for Sagar defense. So how are we going to grow this ecosystem? You know, वो से कहते हैं कि हमें कि मशाल जो है वो NIO TDAC ने तो जगा दिया है, वैसी ने जगा दिया है. How would startups and SME take it forward? Is it only up to the GRSE, sir, or GSL, or is it up to the smaller players also? And this is a question to be asked because it's a very capex-oriented business, and we do not have an ecosystem for that. So, as we went around, and this is something which we developed ourselves internally, is doing a human-based risk assessment. As I said, we did not have that amount, so we went about how, as in human-based, you would look at any scenarios. As a soldier, what would be the CNOPS operating for him? So we started studying this, and we came up with this model of a human-based risk assessment for, and there's a mathematical model around it, which we developed. This helped us to define a CNOPS. So we talk about devices or the vessel itself as a payload. So if you have the right devices, right payloads, that will help you to build your perception. If you have the right perception, that will help you to build your behavior. And once you get the right behavior, you'll be able to carry out your task. And that can be single agent, multi-agent, looking at swarming across. And this is something we have been trying to push even at the international level, and as a team we have been trying to bring it as one of the standards in the IMO committee, especially for autonomous shipping. Now this will actually define your architecture, whether you're doing autonomy in terms of multiple agent USVs working across, or you're looking at a single agent operations. Also, this will also help you to define a standard where you have a USV, you have a UAV, and you have your motherships also parallelly walking across. Not only that, as we proceed forward, there are yet unknown. We all feel that we know it, but these are the unknowns across. Right, our harbors, where we are looking at the autonomous boats in conjunctions with the bigger ships and merchant ships in operations, fishing vessels, which is outside the rule number 18 when you're looking at, and imagine there's a restricted visibility, everything changes. So what kind of autopilot, what kind of reactive guidance system? So these unknowns will actually define the roadmap of future autonomous systems. And this is where we all are looking up, we all are trying to work together, and we all need to be a team, because there's a huge amount of input would come across from the master marining environment, and a strong amount of input would come across from the government agencies and the armed forces, which can accelerate. In India, the first takers is the armed forces. But yes, there is an opportunity for all of us as Indian to really have our standards there and not look up to LRS or DNV or GL for a matter of fact. As this is a small video of a vessel which we have done here. I don't know if the video plays. Let's see. Negative? Okay, though. So it's a 13-meter craft which does around 64 knots for 48 hours of endurance, completely built out of 3 locations, that is Hyderabad, Gujarat, and finally here in Pune. Built by young engineers between the age of 24 to 26 years across. The core guidance have come from the armed forces, the Navy, the requirement, and it is not just on USV, it actually works in swarm. So as a merchant mariner, it really gives me a proud that I can keep my sailors away from the harm's way, and also in coming time take it to larger ships. That's the end goal. And this is where I'm trying to work across. Okay. this is the goal of Nippon, what they said. I worked at Hyundai and NKK shipyard for a few years there in Japan. And by 2040, they have the goal to, have the 50% of the ships to be autonomous in Japan. I have a dream. I would say, sir, I'm not half Navy, but I'd say Navy has really adopted me. And with this adoption of the Navy, we really want to go at the world scale and tell them that, hey, look, standards are going to come out of this country. So this is a dream which we are trying to do across. The support is from the Navy, and it has been a very, very strong hand-holding. I'll tell you, a small organization like us would have not been here if these people here on the dais would have not been there. So I want to once again thank you all for that support, and this is what we dream of. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikunj, for an excellent presentation. Now we will open the house for questions. Before